recently I was introduced to the concept of salon from a friend of mine, which I mean, we have two experts here, but it seems that French people have something called salon, which is like a gathering of people to have some discussions. So I think salon is the perfect name for concept here. Happy to have a chance to sort of get the discussion going today for today's salon about the work-life balance. So this is something pretty important to me, and briefly I just shared my idea. So I want to finish at 5 o'clock to respect everyone's time. So I think for salon is good for like a maximum 20 minutes, maybe better 10 to 20 minutes presentation. So I prepared a little script to help keep me on the time because I have a lot of things I want to say. So firstly, I'm just going to present my own experience, my own opinion, and some of my concern as well. So it's just opinion. And then after that, I'll share the results of the survey, which I shared around, and I got some nice responses. Thank you for taking the time to do that. Okay, so first I just want to define what we mean when we say work-life balance. It's really the idea of maintaining a healthy boundary and equilibrium between the demands of our work and our personal lives. And it's not just about how many hours we work, but about being able to mentally separate work from the rest of our life and actually enjoy that time away from work. This is super important for our mental health and for being able to sustain our performance in the long run. So I found a nice definition of work-life balance, which is managing the demands of work and your personal life in a way that helps prevent burnout. And I think this is the key. So what is burnout? Found another nice definition here, that the three main components are the feeling exhausted, feeling mentally distant, or having a negative idea about your work, and of course the reduced efficacy, which means like effectiveness or performance at work. So this is the point. And so what are the components of the work and life? So I want to break it down to see where the balance can be off track. So on the life side, we have things like family life, lifestyle, hobbies, commuting time, and also vacation. And on work, as researchers, as scientists, we have paper writing, proposal writing, experiments, data collection, analysis, studying, reading the new literature, and also keeping up with communication like emails and reports, and of course, and then we have all the conferences, travel, and preparations for that. So there's a lot of different things, and my concern is that some of these things are open-ended, meaning endless. So how do we keep the balance, I think, is a very important question for us to keep in mind. So I want to share really briefly my personal journey. It's not about me, but it's just my own perspective, and I'm kind of going first to be a little bit vulnerable to open up, and so give you guys also the permission to be honest. So my career has basically been fueled by passion. I'm a passionate person. I care about making an impact in the world, and when I'm inspired, I can do a lot, but I've realized that passion is not the sustainable fuel in this line of work. For example, I started in engineering, but it was too demanding because I didn't have a strong study habits because I was always good in school. So I didn't really need to learn how to study and do this kind of stuff. So I switched over to horticulture, which finally brought me to Japan. So it's a long chain of events, and I ended up doing research, which was never really the plan. And so I was just following my passion, following my interest, and not really thinking strategically about like balance or sustainability. So that's how I got here, and I have my own experience with burnout. So that's why this is important to me. And I want to comment on the publish or perish situation. So I think it's perfect coming from our previous discussion. I think we're all aware of this idea of publish or perish, where we think that we have to work as hard as we can, as fast as we can, all of the time. So there's constant pressure to produce papers, build your CV, show results. The work is never really done. There's always more papers to read, more data to analyze. You could always do one more revision of that paper. And I've noticed the law of diminishing returns in writing, so at some point you just have to call it good enough and ship it, but it feels like the job is never truly finished, which could be stressful. So my sobering realization was that basically the work is endless. So early in my career, especially coming to Japan, my priority was my lifestyle. I was just happy to be here, enjoying living abroad, and kind of just going through the motions at work, doing like the minimum to look like I was trying and have some output and proceed my career. But I wasn't really pushing myself too hard. And then at one point, after a conference, I had this realization that everyone is actually really good in this industry, and that if I want to succeed, I need to try harder. So I decided to start trying harder, putting in a lot more hours and really getting my head in the game about like organization, research, task management, all the stuff. And what I discovered is even when I try as hard as I can, there's still always more work to be done. So, about the consequences of pushing harder, it basically consumed all the time I was willing to give it. And what I also noticed is that many professors and senior researchers also work evenings and weekends because for them research is their hobby. And that's great if that's what you want to do, but I realized each of us has to decide how much of our life we're willing to trade for our career goals. And for me, I want to succeed, but I also want to have a life outside of work. So, challenges of taking time off. One of the hardest things about maintaining the balance is actually taking time off. So in my experience, people often feel afraid of looking lazy or like they're not committed. And in Japan, we actually have a law that requires people to take at least 5 days off every year. And why is that? And I think it actually adds stress because now we have the administrative department chasing you down, reminding you to take your holiday, which I think is only making things more stressful because now you have 5 less days to do the stuff that you're trying to do, and you might end up just working on those holidays, which is basically wasting them. So, yeah, that's pretty much the point. So there's this anxiety that taking a break is going to set you back, and that basically I'm not caught up enough or ahead enough to have earned my vacation. But actually time off is super important, so rest is not just about feeling good. It's really important for morale, energy, cognitive ability, creativity. There's research shows that sleep is critical for learning, memory, and problem solving. Sometimes the brain is working on things while we're resting. Did you ever wake up with the answer to a problem that you were trying to figure out? So I know for me, if I'm working too many hours, I start to lose sleep because even if I get home late, I want some time before I go to bed, and then that just creates this cycle, and my performance will drop over time, which for me makes me feel like I don't deserve a break because I haven't been productive enough. So this is the cycle which leads to burnout. And the situation in Japan versus other countries, there's a culture of working long hours here in my experience. Depending on the working environment, it's different, but there's some variation there. I think that in Europe, people tend to take longer vacations, and it's pretty standard to get like an auto response from someone saying, I'm out of the office until like next month. You know, if it's important, please contact this other person. Basically, do not expect to hear from me, right? But here in Japan, I've gotten apologies from my colleagues for replying 1 day after I sent an email or a message. Like, what world do you live in? You know, I think that's a very speedy response time personally. So in the US, I don't really know, but it seems to be mixed, kind of somewhere in the middle. People don't take that much vacation. So yeah, it makes me wonder though, like, are people in other countries, they seem to be just as successful even though they may be taking more vacation. So is there a relationship there, or is it just a coincidence? I know I'm blasting through the delicious content here, so I don't know what slide I was on, but I'm just telling my thing here. So yeah, so about burnout, right? So it can happen even after periods of low productivity. So I've experienced this myself, and I would look back at the previous week, previous month and think, why am I burned out? I wasn't even that productive, which adds another layer of like shame and judgment and confusion. So it's usually the result of like a longer period of time combined with not taking proper breaks. This is my opinion. If we ignore it, it's going to reduce our productivity far more than if we had just taken a break. That's what I think. So workplace culture definitely plays a huge role. Each lab, in my experience, labs are pretty isolated, so they have their own culture, like separate petri dishes, right? That's why it's called culture. So in Western labs, like especially where I was, there was more of like a mixing going on, more interaction between groups, which I think helps to kind of balance things out. Like if there's one lab over here, everyone's working till 10 p.m. and they think that's normal, but everyone else is going home 5 or 6. If they start talking, I don't think it's going to stay that way. Unless they just love what they do, then, you know, good for you. Congratulations. So yeah, if everyone else stays late, it makes you feel like you have to stay late too. So, you know, some of us are aware of what's going on in Japan. It seems to be more of a thing in the business world, but like the boss stays late because he wants to look like a hard worker, and then everybody else stays late because they don't want to be the first person to leave. They don't want to go home before the boss, and no one's actually getting anything done. I think that's different in an academic setting because people are like actually working and you don't have these kind of like arbitrary requirements, but it's still a thing going on. So I just wanted to speak to that as well. So this is all just material to get you guys thinking so that we can have a discussion. So another challenge I've faced is managing multiple projects. I struggle with one project, but then if there's multiple projects, that is a challenge for me. So I actually have a certificate in project management, and I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing because like that's all about like business project management. Like the examples is like a construction project. You have a big team and like none of that stuff applies to this. So I've often felt like I'm building a house while discovering what the tools are in my toolkit. And without clear boundaries, it's easy to slip into working constantly, late at night, on weekends, but that actually makes you less productive over time, in my opinion. So breaks are important, and that's just a general kind of cry for help of like, please, you know, any clue whatsoever about how to manage projects like concretely would be greatly appreciated by probably more than just me. So I also wanted to briefly speak about neurodivergence and work patterns. It's kind of like a new trendy word, which just means like all the stuff. For me, it's ADHD and possibly autism. You know, not to be like jumping on any bandwagon or anything. But yeah, some people have like normal brains and can work like 6 to 8 hour days consistently. I guess I'm not one of them. So I've found that trying to force myself into this sort of standard neurotypical pattern only adds stress, and then I'm like shaming and judging myself why my brain doesn't work like that. You know, for me, I tend to alternate between highly productive days, like could be 10 hours, and then like a low productive day. So kind of, I think learning to understand how you work and optimize your schedule for your own like rhythm and style is probably worth considering if you have the luxury of like setting your own schedule and stuff like that, which I think a lot of us do, which is really awesome. So yeah, I just wanted to speak about that too, and this has been a nice environment for that in that regard. So some tools and techniques which can help. I've tried out Notion for task management and organization. Trello is another good one. And then for time management, I played around with this thing called the Pomodoro method, which is 25 minutes of working, 5 minutes time off, and also music to help me focus, like binaural beats or just whatever instrumental music. That sort of, for me, occupies like this part of my brain that would otherwise be, you know, distracted pretty much. So yeah, we each got to find our own things which help us, and also boundaries are important. So I now have a thing how you can get started. Basically, I don't know, but maybe decide when you're gonna stop working in advance. Maybe plan a day off or 3. try some new tool or technique and share with the group, like maybe talk about this stuff. I don't know, we could even maybe have like a Slack channel about it. And check in with yourself occasionally and just ask myself, like, how is this going? What's working? What's not working? These are some things you could try. So final thoughts, like it's personal, it's up to you. We all have our own lifestyle and priorities, and you gotta find your own formula, but maybe we can share some stuff. We all deserve to enjoy our lives, not just survive our careers. And I hope that by talking about these things openly, we can help each other find more sustainable paths forward.